Picture this. You're sitting across from your new son-in-law, still tasting wedding cake from 2 days ago, when he casually drops this bomb. Benjamin, Liberty and I need your house. You should move to a senior facility. The audacity hit me like a freight train. But what I discovered next about Silas Alaband would make that demand look like child's play. Trust me, you won't believe how this power game unfolded. At 68, I thought I'd seen every type of manipulation, every angle people use to take advantage. After all, 40 years as an engineer teaches you to spot structural problems before they collapse. But Silas? He wasn't just greedy. He was something far more dangerous. Something that would put not just my house, but my entire life's work at risk. The Golden Oaks restaurant still held traces of celebration from Liberty's wedding reception. 2 days earlier, I'd written a $15,000 check to give my daughter the perfect day. The string quartet, the elaborate floral arrangements, the champagne that flowed like water, everything Liberty had dreamed of since she was 7 years old. Now here we sat, in the same intimate booth, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Silas leaned forward, his wine glass catching the restaurant's amber lighting, wearing that confident smile I was beginning to recognize as predatory. "Benjamin," he said, his voice carrying false warmth, "Liberty and I have been talking about our future. We need our own space to start our family properly." I set down my fork carefully, the celebration mood evaporating. "You have your apartment, Silas. It's a nice place. But your house would be perfect for a young couple." His words carried an assumption that made my blood run cold. "Think about it, all that space just going to waste. And at your age, wouldn't something more manageable make sense?" At my age, the phrase hung in the air like a challenge. 68 wasn't ancient, but Silas spoke like I had 1 foot in the grave. Liberty shifted uncomfortably between us, her wedding ring catching the candlelight, the same ring that had cost more than most people's cars. "That's my home, Silas. I built it with my own hands 20 years ago." His smile never wavered. "But you are just one person in such a large house. It's not practical. We'd take such good care of it. Think about your grandchildren playing in those rooms someday." The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost missed the calculation behind his eyes. Almost. "Dad, please don't fight," Liberty pleaded, her voice carrying worry I hadn't heard since her divorce 3 years ago. "It's supposed to be a happy time." Happy? I'd just paid for their dream wedding, and now her husband wanted my dream home. "The answer is no," I said firmly. "Find your own place." Silas's expression flickered. Just for a moment, something cold passed behind his charm before the mask returned. "Of course, Benjamin, I understand completely. We'll figure something out." But his tone had sharpened, and I caught something in his eyes that made my engineering instincts scream danger. That night, I sat in my study, surrounded by familiar comfort, leather chair worn to my shape, bookshelves holding 40 years of technical knowledge, photos of my late wife, Margaret, smiling from every corner. The whiskey burned, but not as much as Silas's casual assumption that I'd simply hand over everything I'd worked for. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The next morning, my neighbor Cecil approached while I unloaded groceries. His weathered face carried the expression of urgent news. "Benjamin, I need to tell you something important," he said, glancing toward my house. "Yesterday afternoon, Silas brought someone to your property, business type in a suit, carrying measuring equipment." My blood went cold. What were they doing? Walking around, measuring everything, taking photos. The guy wrote everything down like he was doing a professional assessment. Cecil's former police instinct showed in his serious tone. "Looked official, but seemed strange since you weren't home." "How long were they there?" "About an hour. Silas had keys, let him inside, too. Guy spent time in your backyard, measured the fence line, photographed the foundation."
I thanked Cecil and rushed inside, my heart pounding. In my study, I opened my computer and checked the browser history, praying I was wrong about my suspicions. The search history loaded, confirming my worst fears. Someone had conducted extensive research while I was out. Property appraisers, Chicago suburbs, quick house sale companies, legal requirements, property transfer, Illinois, power of attorney, real estate transactions, elderly homeowners. Each search term hit like a physical blow. Silas hadn't just brought an appraiser. He'd researched the entire process of taking my house legally. This wasn't spontaneous greed. This was calculated theft. With trembling hands, I continued scrolling. Professional appraisal services, companies promising quick cash sales, legal firms specializing in property transfers for senior citizens. Silas had mapped out every step of stealing my home. I immediately called my lawyer, Jason Young. His secretary tried to delay, but when I mentioned potential real estate fraud, Jason took the call immediately. "Benjamin, what's happening?" "Benjamin, I think my son-in-law is trying to steal my house. I have evidence he's researching how to do it legally." The silence stretched too long. "Benjamin, what's your son-in-law's name?" "Silas Alaband." "I need you to sit down." Jason's professional tone shifted to something more urgent. "I have 3 active cases involving Silas Alaband. He specializes in real estate fraud targeting elderly homeowners." The room tilted around me. "Are you saying he's done this before?" "His pattern is identical every time. Marry into families, gain trust, then use forged documents to claim property ownership. The victims are always recently widowed men in their 60s or 70s with adult children facing financial struggles." My free hand gripped the desk for support. "But he just married my daughter." "That's exactly his timeline, Benjamin. He works fast before victims can react or seek legal advice."
Jason's words echoed in my mind as I began the most important project of my engineering career, not building something, but protecting everything I'd already built. If Silas was a professional criminal, I needed professional evidence. "Don't sign anything," Jason had warned. "Don't give him access to financial documents. And Benjamin, be very careful. If he suspects you know his true nature, he might accelerate his timeline." That evening, I began my investigation with systematic precision. 40 years of engineering had taught me to approach problems methodically, to test theories against evidence, to build foolproof solutions. First, I secured my important documents. The wall safe behind Margaret's portrait held the foundation of my life's work: property deed, updated will, bank statements, insurance policies. Everything Silas needed to steal my legacy. I photographed each document, storing copies in multiple locations. Next, I researched Silas himself. His social media presence painted an impressive picture: professional headshots, business conference photos, testimonials from satisfied clients. But cross-referencing dates revealed impossibilities. Silas claimed to be consulting in Denver while simultaneously honeymooning in Phoenix with another man's daughter. The deeper I dug, the more disturbed I became. Silas's LinkedIn showed 3 different business addresses in 18 months. His Facebook relationship status had been married to 4 different women in 2 years. 4 different women, 4 different families, 4 different elderly fathers who'd probably trusted their daughter's choice. Jason arranged phone calls with previous victims. Eleanor Martinez in Phoenix spoke with a shaking voice. "He was so helpful at first, worried about my safety living alone. One morning he showed up with a moving truck and eviction papers, said the house had been sold for my own good." Robert Chen in Denver had a similar story. 6 weeks after the wedding, he had papers saying I'd signed a power of attorney. The signature looked real,
but I never remembered signing anything. Each conversation revealed Silas's sophisticated operation, professional document forgers, corrupt notaries, legal expertise that made victims doubt their own memories. The emotional devastation was consistent too. Adult children who believed their new spouse over their elderly parent. While cleaning my living room the next morning, I discovered something that changed everything. Behind Margaret's decorative ceramic bowl, a tiny lens caught the morning light. No bigger than a shirt button, professionally installed and nearly invisible. Silas had been recording me. My hands trembled as I carefully extracted the micro SD card. The violation felt worse than his demand for my house. This was my sanctuary, where I'd grieved Margaret, made private phone calls, planned my investigation. The computer loaded 47 video files spanning 2 weeks. I clicked the first with mounting dread, watching myself talk on the phone about routine insurance matters. The audio quality was crystal clear, the video surprisingly sharp. Then I found what Silas had really been recording. Himself, standing in my living room while I was at the grocery store, speaking confidently on his phone. "The old man is completely trusting. By the end of the month, the house will be ours. The documents are almost ready." I paused the recording, my heart hammering. Here was Silas, in his own words, admitting criminal intent. The conversation continued with someone named Richard. "Are you sure the notary stamps will pass inspection?" "He's exactly like the others, proud, independent, but ultimately naive. These elderly targets sometimes surprise you." Silas laughed with cruel satisfaction. "He actually paid $15,000 for our wedding. Made it so easy to look legitimate."
My vision blurred with rage, but my engineer's mind was already calculating. Silas's arrogance had handed me irrefutable proof of his criminal conspiracy. His own surveillance equipment had become evidence against him. I copied the files immediately, creating backups on multiple devices. This single recording was worth more than weeks of detective work. Silas's own voice clearly stating his criminal intentions, naming his accomplice, revealing his complete plan. But I needed more than evidence. I needed justice. The next morning, I called the police department and asked for Detective Anira Ficano, whom Jason had recommended for cases exactly like this. "Detective Ficano, this is Benjamin Smith. I have evidence of real estate fraud involving someone you might know, Silas Alaband." "Mr. Smith," her voice carried immediate interest. "Can you come to the station this afternoon? I've been tracking Silas Alaband for 8 months." Detective Ficano's office looked more like a war room than a typical police workspace. Maps covered one wall with red pins marking locations across 3 states, each pin representing a family Silas had destroyed. "Mr. Smith, you could be the key to finally stopping this man," she said after reviewing my evidence. "But it requires your cooperation in a sting operation." My pulse quickened. "What kind of cooperation?" "We need you to act normally. Let Silas proceed with his plan while we record everything for evidence." She studied my face carefully. "It means letting him think he's succeeding until we have him on tape committing the crime." The idea felt surreal, but I understood the logic. You want me to let him think he's winning. Until we have irrefutable evidence of criminal intent. Your recordings are excellent, but we need him attempting the actual fraud on camera. Detective Ficano's technical team transformed my house into a sophisticated recording studio. Micro cameras appeared throughout my living room and kitchen, each device smaller than a quarter and completely invisible once positioned. Audio equipment followed, directional microphones that could capture whispered conversations from across the room. "Unless Silas specifically looks for surveillance equipment, he won't notice anything," the lead technician explained. We rehearsed likely scenarios for hours. Detective Ficano played Silas while I practiced natural responses to his manipulation tactics. "Remember, your safety is our primary concern. Don't try to trap him. Let him reveal his criminality organically. Just be yourself. Be suspicious, Ask questions any reasonable person would ask.
The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock, and I felt the tiny vibration from the communication device in my pocket. Detective Ficano's signal that all recording equipment was active. Through the window, I watched Silas climb my front steps with another man carrying a leather briefcase, both wearing confident smiles that I now recognized as predatory. "Benjamin!" Silas's enthusiasm seemed genuine, which made his deception even more chilling. "This is Richard Fox, licensed notary public. We have wonderful news about your housing situation." Richard looked exactly like a corrupt official, middle-aged, overly formal, carrying himself with false authority. They settled into my living room with theatrical confidence, Silas spreading documents across my coffee table like he owned the place. "Benjamin, I have incredible news," Silas announced. "We've completed the sale of this house. You're moving to a lovely senior facility. It's all arranged." I examined the papers with engineering precision, noting the professional quality of the forgeries. "That's interesting, Silas. Who exactly did you sell my house to?" "A wonderful young family paying well above market value." His smile never wavered. "Richard here has all the legal documentation." Richard opened his briefcase with flourish, revealing official-looking stamps and seals. "Mr. Smith, these documents show the completed sale of your property. Everything is legally binding and properly notarized." "I don't recall agreeing to sell my house, Mr. Fox." "Sometimes elderly individuals forget these important arrangements. The paperwork clearly shows your signature and consent." Perfect. They were establishing the entire fraud scheme on camera, using exactly the language Detective Ficano had predicted. "Well, this is certainly unexpected," I said, maintaining my role as confused elderly victim. "Perhaps we should visit the police station first, just to make sure everything is proper." Silas's confident expression flickered. "The police station? Why would we need to go there?" "They're very interested in the information I sent them about your previous house sales." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Silas went pale, while Richard shifted nervously in his chair. "What do you mean by previous sales?" Silas's voice had lost its confident tone. "I mean your activities in Phoenix, Denver, and 3 other cities, Silas. The police have been looking for you for some time." Silas stood abruptly, forged documents scattering. "You're talking nonsense. Richard, tell him these documents are completely legal." "I mean that Detective Anayera Ficano has 47 recordings of you discussing your criminal plans, Silas." I remained seated, watching their panic build. "Including your conversation with Richard about forged notary seals." Richard went white. "Richard, you said this was clean. You never mentioned police investigations." But the sound of car doors slamming outside made Silas freeze mid-step. Through the window, unmarked police vehicles surrounded my house, officers positioning themselves at every exit. Silas turned back to me, his predatory confidence replaced by desperate fear. "What have you done?" I pressed the panic button in my pocket and said calmly, "I protected my home from thieves, Silas, something you should have considered before targeting the wrong engineer."
The front door burst open, and Detective Ficano stepped through with 3 uniformed officers. "Silas Alaband, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, elder abuse, conspiracy, and interstate criminal enterprise." "This is ridiculous," Silas protested as officers secured him. "Benjamin, tell them this is a family misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding, Silas, was thinking you could steal my house." Richard Fox had already raised his hands in surrender. "Officers, I want to cooperate fully. I didn't know about his previous crimes." As the police cars loaded their prisoners, I felt the satisfaction of a complex engineering project reaching successful completion.
Silas's arrogance had led him to discuss his crimes in detail, never suspecting his own surveillance equipment would become evidence against him. 8 weeks later, I walked up the granite steps of the Cook County Courthouse for Silas's trial. The courtroom buzzed with activity as victim after victim testified about Silas's identical methods across 5 states. When the prosecutor called my name, I walked to the witness stand with steady steps, feeling the weight of not just my own case, but all the families Silas had destroyed. "Mr. Smith, please describe the events of that afternoon." The defendant arrived at my house with forged documents claiming I had sold my property. He demanded immediate eviction and threatened nursing home placement if I didn't comply. "How did you respond?" I suggested we visit the police station, where I had already reported his criminal activities based on 3 weeks of investigation. After 2 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Judge Clark's sentencing was swift. "Mr. Alaband, you've systematically targeted vulnerable elderly citizens for financial exploitation. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison with full restitution to all victims." Outside the courthouse, Liberty hugged me tightly. "Dad, I'm so proud of how you protected not just yourself, but all those other families." "Sweetheart, you love someone who deceived professionals for years. That shows your good heart, not poor judgment." As we drove home together, she squeezed my hand. "Dad, what's next for you?" I thought about speaking engagements for elder fraud prevention, about helping other victims find their voice, about using my engineering mind to solve problems beyond just my own. "Whatever comes next," I said, "I know I can handle it." At 68, I had learned that protecting family requires not just love, but strategic thinking, careful preparation, and unwavering determination. My house was safe, my daughter was healing, and Silas Alaband would spend the next dozen years remembering the old man who refused to be his victim. Sometimes the most dangerous predators come disguised as family. They count on our love, our trust, our desire to see our children happy, but they underestimate the power of experience, the strength that comes from decades of solving problems, and the determination of someone protecting everything they've worked for. Have you ever had someone in your life who seemed too good to be true? Someone whose charm felt a little too polished? Whose questions seemed a little too pointed? Trust your instincts. They're usually right. If this story resonated with you, please give Hidden Hearth a like and subscribe for more tales that explore the hidden depths of human nature. Share your own experiences in the comments. Your story might help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the best defense is a good investigation.